the company has effectively walked away from a problem without any regard to the consequences of their actions.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Let's dig into some more of these recent updates about child labor in Alabama. From Reuters, who originally broke the story about children working in manufacturing facilities with OSHA violations for amputation hazards back in July. From Reuters, in an interview before a Reuters event in Detroit on Wednesday, Munoz said Hyundai intends to, quote, sever relations with the 2 Alabama supplier plants under scrutiny for deploying underage labor, quote, as soon as possible, unquote. Jose Munoz is the company's global chief operating officer. And so that is the big recent news, is that Hyundai is going to be cutting relations with these 2 plants that have been going through this scandal about child labor here in Alabama. And, you know, what this is doing is not taking accountability. It's not an attempt to rectify mistakes or to make amends to the community that they have damaged, and that they've damaged purposely, in my view, right? I mean, Dale Jackson even said, when I spoke to him about this situation on his radio program, the whole reason that companies like Hyundai use these third-party labor providers, the whole reason that they subcontract out this work in the first place is specifically to skirt labor law. You're not stupid, I'm not stupid, they're not stupid. We know that's why they used them in the first place, and now that their supplier has gotten caught doing exactly what they were brought into Hyundai's supply chain to do, Hyundai is now cutting them loose. And of course, look, obviously no tears are going to be shed by me for the executives of these suppliers. Like I said to Dale on his show, I reckon these people ought to be arrested. I do. I reckon if we're going to be throwing people in jail for missing fines for a traffic ticket, or any number of, or you know, sleeping on a park bench or something, if we're going to be putting poor people in jail for things like this, executives of companies that put 12-year-olds in manufacturing facilities with OSHA violations for amputation hazards, they should absolutely be going to jail for child endangerment. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? So no tears are going to be shed by me for these executives. But these executives are not the ones that are going to be hurt by this. They're not the ones relying on this job for a paycheck to provide for their families, right? They're going to have a nice parachute. They're going to have a real soft landing at some other company exploiting some other worker. That's what's going to happen for the executives of the SL Alabama and Smart Alabama, these suppliers for Hyundai. They're going to have a real soft landing. It's not going to hurt them, not going to punish them. Not going to hurt and not going to punish the people responsible. This will hurt the workers that came forward with abuses of management. That's who that's going to hurt. And that's exactly what the United Auto Workers are saying. In a press release from the United Auto Workers, they say, quote, by abandoning these workers, the company, which has received millions of dollars in subsidies, has effectively walked away from a problem without any regard to the consequences of their actions. And just to illustrate that point about the subsidies really quick, this is from the American Prospect in a piece about this situation last week. In the past, Alabama has given Hyundai, the state of Alabama, has given Hyundai hundreds of millions of dollars in subsidies. It lured the company to locate in Montgomery with a $252.8 million incentive package in 2002 and another $59 million in inducements in 2018. So we're looking at just from those two subsidies, $250 million from the taxpayers of Alabama. From these workers.
I can't believe Gen Z would do that.
Right. Yeah. $250 million from people like these workers who are now going to be out of a job, who pay taxes. In that piece for The Prospect, Lee Harris interviewed the Southern Regional Director for the UAW, and he expanded on that criticism of Hyundai. He said, quote, "You know what happens to be in that supplier plant? Local Alabamians who pay taxes to the state. You're paying taxes to your state, and your state has given Hyundai money and incentives, but when your employer uses child labor, the CEO's solution to stop that is I cut you out of a job. That's insane. That's insane. Instead of walking away, here is the UAW's proposed solution, and a solution that I think makes sense. From their press release again, quote, "The people of Alabama deserve quality, family-sustaining union jobs in auto. Jobs they can depend on," UAW Region 8 Director Mitchell Smith said. "We call on Hyundai's Global Chief Operating Officer, Jose Munoz, to rescind his decision to cut ties with their suppliers and instead come to Alabama, meet with auto workers and the community, and agree to improve working conditions for the U.S. workers who make Hyundai vehicles." I think that would be the right move. I think that would be the right move. And in addition to that, instead of severing ties with these suppliers or allowing them to stay third party, Hyundai should just take over operations of these plants, have it all in one supply chain, so that they are responsible for the things that come out of this plant. And this does seem to be part of the solution that Hyundai is rolling out, though, who knows how sincere that is. But this is from Munoz's interview with Reuters. He said, "Hyundai is pushing to stop using third-party labor suppliers and oversee hiring directly." In addition, Munoz told Reuters he had ordered a broader investigation into Hyundai's entire network of U.S. auto parts suppliers for potential labor law violations and to, quote, "ensure compliance." And so, that sounds good. But we'll see how much of that is just BS and how much of that they actually follow up on. That's just one of these issues with these non-union manufacturers, right? There's just so little accountability that these companies have to anybody, to the community, to the workers, or even the consumers. But Hyundai has a clear incentive, a clear and timely incentive to try to BS their way out of this scandal, to just post through it, as folks on Twitter might say. From the American Prospect piece again, quote, "The Korean car giant is currently asking the Biden administration to loosen the rules on a consumer tax credit for electric vehicles, which was recently enhanced in August's Inflation Reduction Act. That now requires the IRA now requires qualifying cars to be assembled in North America. If Hyundai could get the IRA provisions delayed until its U.S. factories are up and running in 2025, it would help the company compete in the roaring new market for electric vehicles." So there's a huge incentive. They've got this huge, there's just this enormous hundreds of millions of dollars ask here that Hyundai has before the president of the United States, basically. And so there's all the reason in the world for them to say all sorts of pretty sounding things. But how much incentive is there going to be for them to follow through on it, especially if the Biden administration caves? In the same press release that I mentioned earlier, the UAW said that they called on the Biden administration not to give in to these requests from Hyundai. From that UAW press release, quote, "The UAW is also calling on the Biden administration to ensure that Hyundai Motors does not receive any subsidies, loans, or other support from U.S. taxpayers until the company commits to work with the community to remedy workplace problems, agrees to a monitoring mechanism and establishes high-road workplace practices that will benefit workers and the communities in which they reside. Hyundai is lobbying to loosen the rules on the consumer tax credit that requires autos to be made in America. Quote from UAW President Ray Curry, President Biden has said that transition to a green economy must result in quality jobs for American workers, and we could not agree more. Hyundai's use of child labor in their U.S. supply chain should immediately disqualify them from taxpayer subsidies. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, obviously, right? Obviously. What's the other? I mean, what would even be the other option there? What would be the justification to continue giving them taxpayer subsidies while they're using child labor? Bonkers. It's bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. And so, we'll see what happens. Obviously, we are going to keep following this story. That supplier out of Montgomery has still not faced any fines or penalties or anything like that. But I have a feeling that they will, given what happened to the supplier outside of Mobile. Face some real penalties there. So we're going to keep following this, and we'll keep you updated. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.